Welcome back to Uncover Your Magic. I am almost upon a year of doing this podcast. I've made it a point to do one episode each week because I feel like when you are consistent in life and anything, magic happens. It's not about perfect, it's about effort. And when you bring that effort every single day, that's where the magic or transformation happens. I always say to my students in my Raising Confidence course, too many days are wasted comparing ourselves to others and wishing to be something we aren't. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and it is only when you accept everything you are and aren't that you will truly succeed. Nothing holds kids back, or anyone really, other than their own insecurities or limiting beliefs. This is why I am so strongly passionate about my Raising Confidence course, because I teach these young minds to push past their fears and their self-limiting beliefs and believe they are made for so much more. Society, and especially now in this era with social media, there is so much pressure for kids. Who can have confidence after watching videos or seeing photos of kids either photoshopped or dancing in merely nothing? How that, that to me is, especially as a mother of two girls, is beyond ridiculous and is so sad to think these kids look up to these other kids as if they are their role models. Once these kids realize that their self-worth isn't measured by how they look or how many likes they have, but what they have given and how much they have loved, that is when I have done what I have come here to do. I have so many more kids to empower and inspire to believe they are so much more powerful than they think and believe. To have instilled confidence in each child before they leave your house, the nest, whatever you want to call, when they leave for college or onto their next step of their life, that they have been so empowered by these powerful tools is my mission here on this planet. Please send me a DM or email me at ashleygoner@gmail.com to put your name or your child's name on the wait list for my next session. So now on to today's episode. Today I have with me Orshika Yulia, a woman I met this year in two of Michelle Sorrell's courses that I took. One was Live Video Mastery, where I learned how to do live video on social media, which wasn't easy, but now it's second nature and it's so fun. And then I also took another course that was 7 months long called Fire and Soul, where I learned how to create my course Raising Confidence and just so many things. It was an amazing course, and knowing Orshika through that process is like going to camp. So even though we only know each other on Zoom, I feel like we've been, we're really good friends. So it's so fun to have her on this show. But more about her. So Orshika is a transformational guide, author, and motivational speaker. Her key focus is guiding domestic abuse survivors to living their complete life. Her story of how she has come to now will inspire you to realize no matter what your circumstances are, you are more capable than you know to rise up and live in the light. Orshika is a single mother of 3 and a domestic violence survivor. She is dedicated to bringing healing to other survivors. She is a trained and certified Jack Canfield trainer, which means that she was trained by one of the greatest mentors of all time, Jack Canfield. Her training and personal journey enhance her ability to see things logical and empathetically in most situations. She's been passionate about supporting others throughout her life. Now it is her mission to guide domestic violence survivors to find their own path to living their complete life. Orshika is also an author and writes weekly blogs on Medium. You are also invited to get to know her journey and programs a bit more at outofthequicksand.com. I am so looking forward to this interview. So please welcome Orshika Yulia to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here with you, Ashley.
Oh, I am so grateful. And we've known each other on Zoom on all these classes of Michelle's. And I mentioned that in the intro. But, finding people like-minded like you and on a journey to help other people and make a difference on this planet while we are here. And, to realize when you meet people that have that same goal or same vision, same passion, not about the same thing, because yours is different than mine, obviously. It just it inspires you to do more. And it inspires you to see that, what can I do? And when you hear your story and what you've done and where you've come in this life to 47 years, right? Mm-hmm. It teaches people that, wow, if she can get there and become this amazing leader and, someone who wants to change the world and help these people that have struggled, why can't I do that? But to be the leader of people that want to make a difference. And I'm, with our children, being a mother, starting them and having them look at you like, wow, look at mom. She's, really trying to make a difference in what, instead of looking at your pain or all the troubles in your life and being the victim, you're mm-hmm. being the victor, and showing them that whatever comes your way, you can always find the light and live in the love and know that it's all happening for me, not to me. Exactly. I love that. So without more of my talking, let's go down to explain so people understand why you're so, into this domestic abuse area, mm-hmm. and then go from there.
Okay, so 10 years ago, July 23rd will be our 10-year anniversary. I freed my family from my domestic violence marriage. And we were in that, my children and myself, for 4 years. And it was just a bad situation. And of course, no comparison game in any part of life, right? So my situation wasn't nearly as bad as many others, men and women both. I didn't get dragged down any stairs. I didn't get, punched repeatedly. I was emotionally manipulated and psychologically manipulated. So it was emotional abuse, psychological abuse. And then when the physical started, I said, no, because my daughters were, coming of ages. So they were, 10 years younger. And I thought, wow, if he could do this to me physically, then, what is he going to do to my daughters who are coming of age? Because those are his stepchildren.
Okay. So that's not their dad.
No, it's my son's father. Oh. And so I was like, if he's going to do this to the girls, if he's going to do something horrible to me, then what is he going to do to the girls? And I never even thought, what would he do to his own son? But I did think, what is this teaching my son, right? That it's okay to treat women like this, or it's okay to be treated like this. Because again, not just women are not the only victims. Mm-hmm. And survivors, men can be victims and survivors as well. So
now I didn't realize that he wasn't your children's father. So what was in the girl's dad? What is his thing?
What's his role? Yeah.
What does he play? What did he contribute in your life?
We were together for 10 years, from the age of 18-ish. Yeah, I was like late 18, almost 19 to about 29. And we dated for a while. We went to university together. We got married. We had 2 kids. And we just both, we didn't understand the importance of communication and the importance of the covenant of marriage. And right, so I'm not pointing fingers like our marriage failed because of him. I take full 100% ownership and responsibility of that one as well. We were just on different vibes. Yeah. So we got a divorce. Yeah.
And young, kind of, growing. And, I always say if I married at 18, there's no way, I just can't imagine, myself as a person, a lot of people do and make it. And that's amazing. But for my person, I needed to grow throughout my 20s, discover who I was, and then figure out who would be my best growing partner that I could live on this planet with. Right.
Yeah.
So now I'm going a little bit deeper because I'm understanding you better. So was your dad a big part of your life? What was the male figure? Why are you attracted?
Why am I attracted to people that I don't stick with?
No, I just meant, did you have with the abuse, did you have an unworthy, what I'm coming with, cause I see you now and you're beyond worthy.
Beyond worthy. Thank you. Yes. So it's really, really weird. I had a great father. He passed 4 years ago, and my father was amazing. He just was a great father. He loved my mother to the best of his ability. he was a great human. He was a pediatrician and was really born to serve the youth. And that's definitely a special calling, and that's where his soul was and his heart was. So how I got attracted to the abuse was because of the lack of self-esteem, right? So I divorced my first husband, and then I was in other relationships, and I just didn't find myself worthy of anything more. And so when the abuser showed up in my life, and he brought home flowers, and he brought home clothes for me to wear, and jewelry, and fake jewelry, just for the record. If he's bringing you home fake jewelry, just no. Just
oh my
no.
gosh.
You're worthy of the good stuff. Anyway.
No kidding.
So, or ladies, excuse me. I said girls, but ladies too. Yeah, I didn't have that good self-esteem. I didn't feel worthy of anything. And so he showed some kindness, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a single mom with 2 little girls and nobody's going to love me. And it was all a mental thing, right? It was all in my head. Right. And I see that now, but back then, I wanted to be loved so desperately. And I wanted a family, as we see in our culture, the male and the female role model, raising the children, living happily ever after. I wanted that family dynamic, that Webster's dictionary, that Merriam's dictionary, definition of family, only to realize that family isn't always, 2 people raising children.
Right.
I made my own family, and it was healthier than any other I could have made at that point with a partner.
Right. So when you were married to your son's father, who we are talking about right now, yes. So it lasted for how many years?
4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so you have your 2 daughters. You're living together, obviously, all 5 of you.
Yes.
And
6, because he had a son too.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. Brady Bunch. Like that's, so anyway, so you have this, do you start having this too much, like this relationship where he's like narcissistic? Would you label it bad? I don't know.
Oh, he was absolutely a narcissist. Probably still is to this day. That's not my cup of tea to worry about anymore. But yeah, he was absolutely narcissistic. And I didn't know what that was at the time. I didn't understand the severity of it, the seriousness of it, the importance of understanding what a narcissist does and how they prey on their victims. Yeah, I was just blindsided until it was almost too late, and I was hell-bent on making the relationship work because, by golly, I was 30 something and didn't want another failed relationship. So instead of pulling up my bootstraps and saying, hey girl, this is not worth your time and energy, I pulled up my bootstraps and said, I'm going to make this work come hell or high water. And that was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Did he want to go get counseling? Was he that kind of a guy that would go work on things, or was he like, we don't need to work on anything?
He's the kind of guy that places blame on everybody else, and we didn't need to work on anything. To work on everything because everything was my fault, and I did everything wrong, and the house was never clean enough because I did it wrong. The children were misbehaved because I did it wrong. So it was, really added great strength to that low self-esteem, right? I mean, I say that with huge sarcasm.
You are speaking to someone right now that's my listener, very close and dear to my heart. I'm not going to say the name, but please listen. I cannot wait for this to come out, because it's understanding you're not the only one. Understanding that when you're in a situation with that kind of a person, that you start believing what he's saying. Absolutely. And it's a cycle. I always told her, like, as soon as, you start doubting yourself and you're questioning it, and then maybe I should leave. But then all of a sudden the flowers and the jewelry come, right? And then everything's back and they're like, oh, I can do this. Like
go, leave. Just pack your stuff up and go. It's the cycle is the survivors have to break the cycle, because the narcissists don't realize. Let me back up. The narcissists who do realize what they're doing are very manipulative. Some of them do not realize what they're doing. So let's, give credit where credit's due. Some narcissists are just dumb, and others are really brilliant. But the cycle is only broken by the survivor. The narcissist is using the survivor as a supplier for their own benefit. They have zero interest in helping the other person and the partnership grow and nurture and be truly loved.
Well, they don't want the other person to grow, right? They want the other person to be stagnant and just be, they can't grow, because then they're going to realize, like, wait, this person's not, it's that control, and seeing someone control. But I always say, gosh, I've been in relationships like that and then realize it. But then I think, being married and have children, it's a different feeling, because you feel like you're responsible for the family and you want to keep it together, especially on your second marriage, and you're, trying to, like, be strong and make it happy. But then you think, what am I doing? I always looking at them in the mirror, right? Like, what am I doing that's allowing this person to do that to me? What is in me that says it's okay?
Right.
That's what I mean. So what were you portraying to him that made him feel it was okay?
Right. Well, and I was hopeless romantic, where I was like, if I just love him enough, he'll learn how to love, and he'll learn how to love everybody, including himself, well enough, and good, and I'll just sunshine and roses and Skittles and lollipops. But the reality is, they're not capable of that kind of love. Like, their brain is physically not capable of that kind of love. And each and every one of us deserves better than to be controlled. And I'm not talking about like, hey, shoot me a text on where you're going, or let me know you got there safely. That's not necessarily control. That could be construed as caring as well. And so I forgave a lot of that kind of behavior and said, oh, he cares about me. And I haven't had anybody care like that about me and care where I am. But then I realized that when the accusations started, if I said, hey, I'm going to lunch with a friend of mine, would you like to come with us? Invited, and it happened to be a male friend. We were out in public. I purposely sat by the window so everybody can see that I was, like, just being very respectful of boundaries and whatever. And one of my ex's friends showed up at the same place, and I invited them to come sit down. And the next thing I hear when I get back home is, oh, you were sleeping with this person and you were totally snuggled up and making out. And I'm like, at Arby's? Yeah, right there on the table in front of everybody, in front of the whole town, because it was a small town, in front of the whole town during lunch hour. Yep. And you have to take yourself out of the situation and go, wow, this person really just sounds like an idiot right now, because they're accusing me of like making out at Arby's and making out at Walmart, not going to my best friend's house. Excuse me, when I say I'm going to my best friend's house, and I'm like, but you show up,
Right.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's like they don't have control. They lost control.
Right.
So you made a decision to do something, and you, talked about it, but not letting it fit in his category of what you should be doing. He didn't have control over that. And then they freak out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you realize one day, this is enough, and you leave.
Well, I realized because he raped me. And I said,
gosh.
No, that's not even an option. I said, no, I don't want this. I cried through the whole thing. I remember it like it happened this morning. Like, you're supposed to forgive and forget, but I forgive. I tend to not forget, especially something that major, right? And I was like, that's not okay. So I called family the very next morning, and a week later, we packed our stuff up and we took off.
And did he know you left?
No. And that's something for anybody who's listening who is thinking about leaving, be smart about it. So I took very logical steps. So it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave. Like, okay, if your life is in danger and you're listening to this, first of all, why are you listening to this? If your life is in danger, get to safety and then come back and listen. But realistically, like, if your life is in danger, get out. But if your life is not in immediate danger, like you're not being held hostage, there's not a gun being pointed at you, like if you have the opportunity to make an escape plan, do some money, go to the sheriff's department, let them know where you're going, give them the address, let them know when you're leaving. I mean, these are all very, very important things, because then the narcissist can come back and say, well, she stole my kids and it's kidnapping, and then you're kind of screwed. Like, there's a lot of women and men who get kind of messed up with that, right? Because they didn't take the necessary steps to let the officers know, the sheriff's department know what's really going on. So be smart about your steps and have a plan for sure.
So you take your 3 little sweet babies with you.
I did.
You leave, you go wait to your mom's or?
I went to my brother's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just live there for
how long?
Do you have savings? Do you have money? How are you doing this?
Yeah, I had a little bit of savings. I had child support from my girl's father. I let the girl's father know what we were doing, and he said, okay, get to safety. That's first and foremost. And once I got to my brother's house, I actually talked to my daughter's father, and he was like, if you want to come down here where he was living and live and I can help out, then let me know what I can do, which is very, very chivalrous of him, and I really appreciate that to this day. But we lived in my brother's house for 7 months in his basement, and until we got our feet back under us. And then I just found a place to live, saved up some money, found a place to live for the 4 of us, and a dog and a cat. And yeah.
What are you doing for work at this time? What were you doing?
I was working at a factory for a month, and then I was working as a
preschool teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you are. You start your new life. You cut the cord. He's gone, and now you're moving on. You're gonna be this force, and you're gonna do it. And right. In your mind, are you like, I'm just gonna do this on my own? I'm gonna start dating and find another guy? Because I mean, where is your mind at this time? Because you're worthy, right?
Right. My mind was, how do I make it through Sears and Walgreens without freaking out? I mean, honestly, my anxiety was so over the fence, through the roof. I mean, my anxiety was so high that even considering wasn't even an option. I needed serious time to heal. When your spouse rapes you and he's been manipulating you emotionally and psychologically for years, you just don't jump into another relationship. It's not fair to your children. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the other person. So yeah, there was no other relationship going on for quite some time.
Right. I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, I just, you think of those little sweet things going, okay, mom, where are we going? Right. As just being a mom myself, you just think of what, parenting and trying to talk to them and explain to them at that age what is going on. And especially having 2 older girls and having them watch it and wanting them to be understanding that, this is not right. This is not how you will be treated by somebody.
Correct.
Explain to me that you're parenting during that time.
What survival mode.
Was. Yeah.
It really, I mean, seriously, it was like, how can I love my babies enough so that they can heal? I did not take care of myself. It was, how can I love my babies enough so they can heal? How can I make this transition easier for them? How can I just be the best mom I know how to be? And I should have taken care of myself, because then I would have been a better mom. We know the saying, right? We serve from our overflow. So we can't serve from an empty saucer. We serve from what's flowing over the saucer. You are the saucer, right? You're familiar with this, Ashley?
Right. Yeah.
You're the saucer, and you fill it up with all the goodness. And then you serve other people from the overflow if your saucer is empty and you got nothing to give. And that's where I was. So go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I just really worked on survival mode and loved them the best I knew how at that time, and answered questions and allowed them to partake in extracurricular activities in school because they desperately wanted that connection and, those friendships. And so I just, with a very watchful eye, but I definitely allowed them to just be normal kids and not have the weight of our adultness on them. So many people and that's where so many parents could really use more instruction, is they put the weight of their pressure onto their children. Now, mind you, I did do that to my oldest one. That was I wish I could have made different choices, but I did do that about some things. I always told my children that if they asked the question, I would answer to their level, right? Like, I'm not going to straight up tell a 9-year-old that their stepfather raped me, but I did make mistakes, and I did open up a little bit more than I should have. And I put a little bit too much my weight on my oldest daughter, because she's just mature beyond her years. And I had to remember that she's still only, 12 and 13 at that time. So.
Right. Now, if she's 20 now?
21, she'll be 22 this summer. Yeah.
And how did the rest of her childhood go with you before
Pretty,
she left?
yeah, pretty good. We have a great relationship now. We had a little hiccup when she was 18, but who doesn't, right? Many, many people do. And that's normal and natural. And she's a very strong-willed child. And we now hang out and do things together. And her childhood was as good as can be expected with, a mom who was living in survival mode.
Right. So when
Yeah.
you look now, so now you're how many years out of it?
10.
You're 10
July will be
years.
10.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right. 10 years out of that. What has been your biggest accomplishment in 10 years? What do you feel so proud of?
My children, like legitimately my children. So my oldest one has a grown-up job. My middle one serves, in our U.S. Army, and she's married to an Army guy. And my youngest one just shines God's light so brilliantly in all the things that he does. And so definitely my children are my biggest accomplishment. And then growing my own business. So my own personal accomplishment, because that's my accomplishment through them, right? But my own
Yes.
personal accomplishment is growing my business.
Yes. So, and your business came through your experience.
It did, yes. So Out of the Quicksand is my business, and it came through my experience. And I went through the Train the Trainer training, right, with Jack Canfield.
Yes.
And I sat there one day and I am a Christian, and I prayed and I meditated, and I was like, Lord, what am I doing with this? Like, I have all this beautiful knowledge, and I have a master's degree in education, and I love to teach, but I didn't want to go back in the classroom. And, what am I going to do? And it was just so clear one day. He's like, well, what have you been through? And I'm like, oh, so I can help people get out of their own quicksand. I can guide them and be their guide through, the yuckiness, and so they can be their own hero of their own life. And I just feel so blessed to be able to do this work.
Yeah. What led you to Jack? How did you get into that training?
Huh. So I was on Tiffany Peterson's campus for a little bit a few years ago, and she was speaking about Jack very highly. So let me back up. In my childhood, we had all the Chicken Soup for the Soul
So
books.
did
So
we.
like,
I love,
yeah.
yes.
So I grew up with Jack basically. And then Tiffany Peterson said something about his training, and I prayed about it, and God was like, no, it's not time yet. And then somebody else said something about Jack, and I prayed about it, and it was like, no, it's not time yet. So then I went to his One Day to Greatness in June of, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago.
Oh,
And was it? Yeah, it must have been 2 years ago because everything shut down last year. So in 2019, I went to his One Day to Greatness event over in Chicago, which is about a 4-hour drive from here. And I was like, all right, God, is this the time? And he was like, yep, this is the time. So I signed up and got certified.
and so, I read Success Principles, and the older children, like I told you before we were recording, I always get the book for them, the ones that are in their 20s that are ready to go, ready to set
Right.
their life on fire. And I really find it so valuable. And I love Jack, and I grew up too on Chicken Soup for the Soul. And in our community, you and I, we are surrounded by all these Canfield, train the trainer
Yes.
people,
Yes.
So to meet all these people, and you in our groups that we've been in through 2020 has been so amazing. And to see what I've learned with you is that it is true. Like, what is my passion? What am I, what are the questions what are things in your mind? What do people ask you? What are you always giving advice about? What is it?
Right.
But you live your life and you do your thing, and it doesn't seem like there's something in there until one day we go to our, we're in our class, or the first one was the live video mastery.
Right.
So we could learn how to talk on the camera
Right.
or on
Right.
social media. Believe
Right.
me, now it's so much easier. And that was amazing class. But then learning what your passion is.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you found and what I found was, oh my gosh, it is. And when you have that, it's like nothing's going to stop you,
Right. Right.
And it's so, when you have, it's like the purpose and your passion, like once that light bulb hits, that's all I wake up in the morning and that is my focus. And I know that's yours too.
It is. And it's such a magical thing to be able to serve like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's magical to be able to serve your passion and do what you love, and know that you're making such a positive impact, not just with the people that you're speaking to today, but the ripple effect that it'll cause for generations to come. So what you're doing is so important because you're building the confidence of, the teenagers in the early 20s, which we absolutely desperately need in this world. And you're so good at it. And it's lovely because you're not just changing that particular person, you're changing the trajectory of their families. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how happy what that passion does for my soul. Right.
Yes.
But that's it. To find that feeling and to know that that is why I'm here. And just like you did. And thank you for that, for you, especially, thank you for that experience. Cause now I'm the person, the vessel that all these other people are going to learn from, and I get to change their life and empower them to believe in them and to know that if I can do this and go through what you did, they see your journey.
Right.
I mean, that's just so empowering to know that you could do that for people. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's really empowering. And I so appreciate the kudos for that. And I love that I can take this really just horrible lesson and reach out to other people and say, you can have a complete life. You can have a life filled with peace and forgiveness and empowerment. It's just whether or not you're willing to put forth the work. It's not easy by any means, right? But it's definitely worth everything because you're worth everything as a human being. So it's worth having those struggles and those cries in the middle of the night or in the bathtub or in the in the closet or in the kitchen or wherever. Mm-hmm. The breakdowns, those tears are cleansing, and they build you up to where you can be in life.
Right. Yeah. What book? You wrote a book, right?
I did. Yes. Right behind me. There's 52. Yeah. That's my book.
What does 52 mean?
52 is 52 different stories where God showed up in my life, whether I realized it or not at the time. So they're just a compilation of stories of my childhood and adulthood, and of course the not so great parts as well. So the rape is in there and some other incidences. It's a compilation of 52 stories of God showing up in my life and showing his grace and his patience to me as one of his children. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
So give me something, an amazing God story from that book.
Okay. Here's an amazing God story from that book. I think this is in there. Pretty sure it is. It should be. If it isn't, wait a minute. Maybe we need a second version. No, it's in there. So we were living on our own. This is after we moved out of my brother's house and we were living on our own. And I was in the midst of changing jobs. So I was done with the preschool job. And then I got a better paying job at a church. And so in that transitional period, the preschool job, there was a hiccup in their system. So I didn't get paid. And they were like, oh, it's going to be 3 weeks until the next paycheck. And I was like, oh, fabulous. And the church was like, we were in that cycle where both of them were going to be paying me in 3 weeks. But I was so paycheck to paycheck. And I had literally $11 to our name, $11 for 3 weeks to feed 4 mouths, get gas in the car, and go to work. And, oh yeah, my car insurance was due as well. And I was living in the Chicago area. Like, you can't fake that, right? There are some areas in this country you can fake that, but not with that, because somebody hits you and then you're in jail. So I was like, Lord, I need you. I have no idea how I'm going to stretch $11 for 3 weeks with all these other, mouths to feed and everything else, bills to pay. And I asked my brother, I was like, do you have any suggestions? And he suggested an organization, St. Vincent de Paul. And I called them, and they gifted me with money for food, for gas, and they paid my insurance. And I had enough. I had enough for the next 3 weeks. And it was like, that's only God. Like, you can call it, a serendipitous coincidence, but if you want to call it the universe, fine, okay. But that's only God.
Right. I love that.
Thing. Yeah.
What inspired you to write that book? Did you just realize you started looking back and thinking, gosh, if people only really listen, because what I'm getting from you is, you're always praying and listening for the answer. and, and listening and being aware, because a lot of people pray and then, they're asking and asking and asking, and then they don't sit still and listen. And what I'm getting from you is that you listen and you take the lead, like you take those steps, you listen and move. And what made you write that book? Did you just realize, wow, my life has been so magical that I need to share this with people?
I listened and I moved.
Really?
I mean, honestly, it wasn't supposed to be 52 stories of my life. I had this whole other thing that I wanted to write about. And the title was going to be 52 either way. And I was meditating and praying one day, and God was like, this isn't serving me, and I need you to write a book to serve me. And I was like, okay. So I pouted for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. I was like, no, but I want to write what I want to write, because my human side kicked in, right? And he waited patiently. And so I said, okay, what do you need me to write? And he was like, tell people how I show up in their lives when they don't realize it. Look back on your stories.
You're just gonna make me cry. Because I love to, I look back at my life and think, wow, you're always provided. You're always provided for.
Yes.
And to know that people go through life and stress about things or worry and, wonder if they're going to have, how am I going to spend, the next 3 weeks on $11? And no, that's not a good feeling as a single mom. And I totally understand that. But, when you look back at it and now you're, looking back at the miracles from life that are always there. And I always call that magic. And, when you really listen and trust and surrender and know that even if it's not in your way or your time or all those things, I just not have a visual of how it's going to come, just know and trust. Right. And it always is there every time.
Always, every time. And that's,
time.
The $11 is a pretty easy, easy story to share. But there are others that are in there that are just a little bit harder. There were times when writing it was not easy. I had, through the darker times of the book, I had to put it down for 3 days and just not write, because I just needed to allow my soul to heal and just be connected again with God and understand that this is about him. And actually my publisher wanted me to use a pen name, which I ended up using just so I can't get sued for slander. And I pouted for about 5.5 minutes, literally. I was like, man, I want to use my name. And then it was like, I heard God again saying, it's not about you, my child. And I was like, fine, I'll use a stupid pen name. It's not a stupid pen name, just for the record. But I was just like, okay, it's not about me. And if we realize that our service is not about us, it's about serving others and helping them, then life just feels more complete and more at peace and more at ease. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's just easier to comprehend, when we're more selfless instead of selfish. Life is it's just better.
Yeah. For sure. As a mom, I didn't have my children till later in life, but once you become that mom and you're responsible for these sweet little beings that God gave you to raise, life takes on a whole new meaning.
It does.
And, the responsibility and what you're, intent, all the things that you do that you're trying to instill in them and, letting them lead the way too at the stage of your life, especially with your older girls.
Right.
And, mine are 12 and 14. So I'm at that place where, they are making their choices and allowing them to do that and to watch them succeed or make the wrong choice. But, and then being aware right now, I think with me having the podcast and what's striking me about you is I've had so many people on as a guest that really are really tuned into their intuition or channel, they have some, they really listen. They have, they write the God writes the book. Right. And, they're listening and they're so tuned into that, and that everyone has that. And my whole thing about learning, my growth over this last year, especially in this learning and meeting all these people and all of our friends from our groups, is when you know that we all have those abilities to really tune into that voice and let it guide you and trust, like we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you put all that together, what a life, like life is just like one day, like living in the now. I always say that, but when you live in the now and you live that way and you're listening and you're trusting and it's going to all work out, and to really portray that to who you're serving and,
Right.
your children, who you're loving, your husband and all that. That's life. That's how it should be,
Absolutely.
And I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that you wrote the book like that,
Thank
because
you.
I'm, it's like, I always think, yeah, a book's in my mind. I have a book in my, right. And I will sit down and get ready for the podcast. And I write my God letter beforehand, dear God, thank you for this time that I get with you, and, have, speak through me, let it flow and make an impact, always trying to figure out, like, whoever listens changes their life. And
Absolutely.
to have that ability to have this platform to do that is beyond grateful. Like, I don't think I knew going into it really where I'm at now. I didn't know the feeling. And now that I know the feeling, that I get to people telling me that I've changed my life. I wake up, I'm now positive. I'm, all these things. But when my whole point now I see is listening to that voice that you do,
Mm-hmm.
and, praying and asking, and talking and writing,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that whatever, and trusting that it is that,
Yeah, absolutely. It's the trusting, right? And that's so hard for so many of us who have been through, serious. It's so hard to trust, but you can choose not to trust and live a miserable life, or you can choose to trust and live a good life where you get to serve others. So, I mean, the choice ultimately is ours, and the responsibility is ultimately ours, right? And taking ownership and responsibility for that choice is definitely ours. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of trust, I just remember something sparked me. Didn't a couple of you quit a job? Nothing, like, wasn't there some recent experience that you just had that you trusted?
Oh, yes. So this is my last week at my job that I've had for 4.5 years. And so next week I delve in 100% to serving all of the people who, all of the parents specifically who have been, who are now survivors of domestic violence. So yeah, I'm going full force, full on, so that I can serve more, because I've been able to serve, but not in the magnitude that I'm asked to, that I'm called to serve. So that starts next week. I'm kind of excited.
Okay, wait.
And a little nervous.
You're minimizing it, because I took it as like, yeah, because you like, for financially, you're like, I'm not going to wait. I just know I'm going to quit this job and just trust that what I'm supposed to be doing is helping these people. I need more time. But how do you come to the place? Because I've been in the place where I look back on my life where I'm just going to quit this job. I have no clue if I am going to have, I just trust. I know that the money's coming and I will figure it out and it will just work out. And right now, this is just not for me. If I don't cut it now, then when will I, what am I waiting for? Like, always getting through that fear. And once you get through that fear, which is coming through me, what I'm seeing in you, like, you've done it and you can. So quitting that job, in your mind, you're like, well, what I've done through my life and what I've done and where I've come, it has given you that strength, right?
Yes.
And the courage to, like, I'm going to kick through that fear and just do it and trust.
And I look back on that $11 story, right? Because yesterday was a hard day. I was like, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome kicks in. Oh my gosh, how am I going to pay the bills? All of this like whirlwind of negativity and the enemy doing his best to work on me. And I just think of that $11 story. So if you ever need inspiration, just think of that $11 story, because if I could get $11 for 3 weeks and be blessed exponentially and now live this life that I didn't even think I could dream of, right? Because when you're in survival mode, dreaming is not an option. Think of like, wow, $11 was 9 years ago, February. And now I get to serve in this capacity, and it's all because of trust. And like, this whole job quitting the job. I prayed about that for 13 months. It's in my little prayer journal. And finally I sat down one day and I prayed the prayer that I always prayed with that particular one. And God said, okay, it's time. To which I said, no, I'm not ready. I was like, no, I know I've been praying this for 13 months, but I'm not ready. And he was like, no, it's time. And I said, okay, then it's time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Just there's so much power in that. So much power, so much hope, and, you know, giving people that knowing that once they trust and just listen and let go. And I always, you know, I see through a lot of people, friends, or, you know, they have this visual, they picture what it should be, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or what it should look like, or how it should come. And, you know, it's going to come this way and this way. And then when it doesn't, and they're so focused on the way it's supposed to come that they have fixated their mind on that, it could have already been, but they've missed it.
Right.
You know, they don't see the magic that has been there their whole time, but they're so focused on this outcome that they visualize so strongly. They have such a strong hold on that visual that they just miss out on life. And that, you know, when you realize that I always tell the girls, like, look up, you know, be aware, you know, and always the love and all that, and be in the loving place. And that's when you realize all those things have always been there. But when people don't realize it and they finally do, they're like, oh my gosh, like,
what have I been missing?
Look at this life, you know, you think we're only here for, I mean, I'm 52, you know, how long is our life? Who knows? There's no guarantee. But to live each day in the now and know that, you know, if I'm doing something that's serving someone and changing their life and making it better, and what it does for whoever, then that is exactly the way I want to live this in the now, and to live in the now and the present, and to know that's all we have. We don't have yesterday, we don't have tomorrow, but all we have is now. And to live with that beautiful feeling of, you know, this is now, like on a Wednesday, this is exactly where we're supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. And that's so true. And it's so important to appreciate the now, especially when you do have a family, you know, and especially when you are in survival mode. It's so difficult at times to just sit and appreciate the now. But it is so important, because that's all you have. That's what fills your cup. That's what fills your soul, are these beautiful, magical moments that just whisk away with, you know, the breeze of the wind. Yeah. The now is very important.
What are when you get down, because we're human, you know, we're going to go down the mountain a little bit.
Sure.
What are the things that you still have triggers that get you down, that you need to work on to get back up the mountain?
Yeah. So some of my triggers are that self-worth, right? That self-esteem. I got, you know, yesterday, like I said, was a prime example. Like, who's going to want to be influenced by me? I'm a nobody. And I ask God to take it away. You know, those are the triggers for me, that the self-esteem, because that's what got me into the situation that I was in. And well, multiple situations that I was in, but this, you know, specific one. And so, you know, it's how long you sit in that quicksand that makes a difference. So, like, hold on just a second. I have a barking dog. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So it's how long you're sitting in that quicksand. And so the quicker people can come out of it, the healthier you are. And so, like, for me, I didn't allow myself to sit in it for too long. And I just prayed for God to take away all the anxiety and all the stress and, you know, the meaningless stuff that you really don't need to put yourself through in this life.
Right. So with your Out of the Quicksand, new business, website, course, what's your vision with that?
Oh, absolutely. Great question. I absolutely have this passion, this goal, this calling to change millions of lives and the trajectory of families, because abuse is a cyclical thing. And so my mission is to change, the vision is to change millions of lives. And the mission is to do that by giving the parents and the children the tools to be able to just feel empowered and feel that peace and feel that forgiveness in their life.
When you say cyclical, what do you mean by that? It passes down, you mean, like,
yes,
with the kids?
Yes, yes. And so it's the parents' responsibility to break that. And I see it so often. I'm in a few Facebook groups for narcissists, like people who are affected by narcissists, and they just want to sit in it. And I feel so much sadness and empathy for those men and women who just want to sit in that, like that's all they deserve. And so that's what they're teaching their children, who will then teach their children. So it's our responsibility as parents to just say no more. You know, I'm not going to pass this along. I'm not going to allow this to be the next generation, the next generation. So my mission and vision is to change that trajectory and stop that cycle. You know, just like alcoholism, just like drug abuse, like somebody's got to be strong and stop it.
Right.
So,
and how do you, how do you do that? I mean, I know it's a long process, but what do you meet with the survivor, and then you have a course that they go through that you, is it a group or one-on-one?
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. I have a 6-week course, and and then one-on-one coaching as well. And that can all be found at outofthequicksand.com.
And Out of the Quicksand, how did that come into your mind?
So I had an energy healer working with me years and years ago. And she said, you know, it just feels like you're coming out of the quicksand. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. And then that thought like got laid to rest, and I didn't even consider it. And then I was like, as I was writing the subtitle for 52, it's finding ways to get out of the quicksand, or finding gifts. What is it? Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. Finding gifts while sinking in quicksand. There we go. I always want to get the wording right. But anyway, so it's finding gifts while sinking in quicksand. And that's really what it felt like, you know, like the gift of God always being there. So Out of the Quicksand came from actually an energy healer from years ago. And then I used it as a subtitle. And I was like, oh, because I had a whole business plan and model, and I was like, here we go, Ushika Yulia Consulting. And I was like, nobody's going to know who Ushika Yulia is. And it's not about me. Again, it's not about me. You know? Right? It was like, I get it. So funny. And then I changed it to Out of the Quicksand, and I was like, yes, that feels right. That's exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, is, you know, that helping hand to get people out of there and then live that life that they dream of, that life of peace and forgiveness and empowerment. Because you can't. Like, just because you've been a victim once and you're a survivor now, it doesn't mean you have to live in survivor mode forever. Right. Like, you can live this beautiful life where you have an office with windows on all 3 sides, which messes with your lighting. You know? No, it's beautiful.
You know, but you know, so my feeling is what I see, because I've lived closely with the same kind of what you went through with my close friend, but you know, watching the not staying in the victim mode, and you know, trying to get out of the survivor, you know, and live, like you were just saying, like live on the other side of the street, right, or whatever. But you know, when you're with somebody for so many years that have told you you're not good enough, you're the one that this is why this is wrong, and oh my gosh, you're not this, and you can't be doing that, and having this so controlled life, and so afraid to do something, and so afraid that it's not perfect, and so afraid of, you know, what if someone thinks this way, or, you know, all those things that go play in your mind, all those limiting beliefs that are so concrete because of what you've been living in for so long. My thing is watching you, and who I've seen before go through this, go from this place of, you know, survivor, and I'm a survivor, and that's your, you know, your label.
Right.
Like, let's get off the survivor and let's go, you know, but to see the ones that do go and get out of the quicksand, that is so empowering. That just like lights me up, because I'm thinking, thank you, God, for letting them see who they truly are, and know the strength that they know they now have to go on to the other side of the street and beyond.
I was going to say, who wants to be on the other side of the street? I don't want to see any.
No, we're long gone.
I'm moving states, people. I'm moving states.
But, you know, just, you know, the seeing that person, especially in that situation that you were in, and, you know, it's just such a degrading, you know, low vibration.
Humiliating, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when I always am talking and saying, okay, thank you, God, for that. That's gone. And now we're on to this amazing life, and you can be, do, or have anything, even if you're 50 or 40, whatever.
Right.
Start now. It all happened for a reason. It's all for a gift. You chose, I always, you chose your life, you're learning your lessons. Maybe you went to the left of the road, and you're supposed to go to the right, but you know what? You went to the left, learned your lessons, and now you're back on the yellow brick road.
Right.
I'm always like, you go down the yellow brick road, you might want to take a left, and that's probably your free will, because you're going to go down and you need to learn some lessons, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
So we come back to the yellow brick road, and now we're back, and look at life. It's like, okay, but being okay with that, and never like being mad at yourself for allowing it, because it all worked for your good. It's always working for the greatest good of who you are as a person and what you're supposed to be doing on this earth. And that is what you look for. And that is the most amazing, when I see that, it just gives me, like, when I see that in you, the strength that you have, and, not going on a vacation for 20 years, like all the things that I was listening, going, oh my gosh, talk about self-love, like, and how your cup runs over and what do you have left, and, all those things, but what you did, and it's all good, because look what you are now. And just to celebrate who you are today, and living in the now, and being so proud of who you are, because I am so proud of you.
Thank you. And I am taking vacation this summer. I just solidified it yesterday. So just so you all know,
good.
I am no longer going to go 20 more years without a vacation, like an actual relaxing vacation.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes. We're on an hour. I want to wrap it up. But what we didn't talk about, what I wanted to, was when you went to train the trainer with Jack. I know this is, we're getting out of that, but I love that. And I do love everybody that came out of that, and I'm so close to them. What was your big takeaway from that experience with Jack?
I am worthy of so much more. That was my big takeaway. You're going to get me crying. I don't know why. That was really emotional, but I am worthy of so much more to give. I have so much more to give. It was like, and I'm worthy of being that person who's being called and chosen to give, to guide, to help people get out of their quicksand. Like, that was huge for me. It was like, little bitty me. Like, I'm a domestic violence survivor, a single mom of 3. Like, what do I know? Who am I? I am worthy.
Yeah, I love it. And you are. Yeah. And you come across that. I mean, not knowing you and meeting you, you do 1,000,000%. You come across that. And I know it's taken work, and I know it's self-talk, and I know it's the thoughts you think, and I know all the things that go into that to become that person that you are right now that I'm looking at. But to know that you created that, and you're on your yellow brick road, you went to see Jack and do that whole thing and transform and learn that you are worthy, and, and then come back, and here we go.
And one of the main things at Jack's was, one of his principles is ask. And I've taught my children that always. They would come up to me and they would be like, never mind. And I'm like, the answer is no. Until you ask, the answer is no. And that's with every aspect in life. That is absolutely by far my most favorite success principle. He teaches about, taking ownership and responsibility for your behaviors, right? Which is vitally important. But in my world, ask, because if I didn't ask Jack to be able to be in the Train the Trainer, then I would be in a totally different place in life. And if I didn't ask myself back in the abusive situation, am I worthy of more of this, then I would still be in that abusive situation. So we have to ask, is this really where we want to go? Is this really where we want to be? If I wouldn't have asked myself, is this where I want to stay? Then I assure you that we would not be having this conversation, because had I stayed, I would no longer be. I'm 100% certain of that. So always ask. Even if you feel like you're an imbecile, always ask. Because you're not an imbecile, you're just not.
No. And asking, and when all of his success principles, I do, and, teaching kids being 100% responsible for your life. And, but the asking, in life, that's when, if you don't ask, and asking the right questions, right? And being aware of, I always say, like, your thoughts are your affirmations, and the things you say out loud are your affirmations. But
Right.
when you ask and you learn how to ask the right questions, the doors that open, the words that God speaks through you are spoken. All that is asking. And
It is.
when you ask, I mean, it's the same thing in the Bible, ask and it's given, like all
Right.
the things, knock and the
Right.
door is open.
Right.
Seek and you shall find, all the things that
All
are all
things.
right there our whole life. And to finally go, okay, it is that.
It is.
It's more, it can't be any more clear than that.
Right. I agree.
But it comes back, and I'm going to say I've loved our time, but I think the one word that I would take away is like trust.
Absolutely.
I think I didn't know where we were going to go with this conversation, and I love it. But I think my one thing is what people can get from it is trust. Right?
100%. Yes, ma'am.
I really do. I would say.
I agree.
Orshika, Yulia.
You did it.
I did it.
Yay. I'm so proud of you.
Taught me and my listeners trusting and surrender, listening to God, asking and asking and asking.
Yes.
And worthy, and everyone is worthy of having the most beautiful life.
We are.
And that's what you're living right now. And I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure and an honor and a blessing. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I loved it. Thank you for this. And I will look forward to the next, wherever we land again together, or be part of each other's lives. And wherever it takes us, I know we'll always be connected.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I appreciate you, Ashley.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.